Bam, everybody. Welcome to this episode of The Branca Show. I am, of course, attorney Andrew Branca, and today is a good day. A good day on many fronts, because yesterday, the demon that walks upon this earth in the form of Karmelo Anthony was righteously convicted of murder for having cut the heart out of 17-year-old Austin Metcalf for no legally or morally justifiable reason. And that conviction was quickly followed within hours by the jury then sentencing this monster to 35 years in what is hopefully an appropriately hellish Texas prison. So that part of this horrific narrative of evil is now concluded. The trial, the conviction, the sentencing. The question then is, what next? What next? Now, some people, I think a little optimistically, are proposing that Karmelo Anthony might successfully appeal his conviction. Most of those making those hopeful claims seem to lack a realistic understanding of how productive or unproductive an appeal is likely to be, including a number of attorneys, either generally productive or productive in this particular case. Perhaps more important than all the legal stuff, though, is the broader consequences for America, both in terms of what this trial has exposed are the true and horrifically racist worldviews of a large swath, not all, but a large swath of the Black American community, as well as how the divisiveness driven into American society by Progressive Fascist Democrat policies for precisely this reason are undermining our nation's most vital social and cultural foundations, such as the very concept of a trial by an unbiased and impartial jury. That's what we're going to talk about today, as well as a bunch of other stuff. So make yourselves comfortable. I have a ton of stuff to cover with all of you. And given the seriousness of the conversation, I thought I would start with some funny stuff. See if I spooled it up correctly. It looks like I did. So this is an AI generated video clip made out to be a Netflix documentary of the Karmelo Anthony saga. I thought it was pretty funny. It has a little music in the background. I hope it's AI generated music so I don't get a copyright strike, but it was funny enough. I wanted to share it with all of you. Full credit, of course, to the account that created this. Let me pop this up and we can enjoy it together.
Come on, Karmelo. You can do it. You just ask for water politely and go on about your way.
What do you want, boy? Get back to work! You don't get nothing!
Boy, you came to the wrong tent. You best get back to work or I'm going to poke myself and tell everyone on the plantation you did it!
Master Metcalf, please, I mean you no harm, I'm just thirsty.
Help me! That no good monkey stabbed me! Help! Austin, are you all right? Damn it!
Only on Netflix. And this is the account. Forbidden HQ made this up. So I'm going to give that guy a follow. That was pretty funny. And of course, you can always count on the Babylon Bee to come through. Karmelo kicking himself for not converting to Islam and stabbing someone in the UK instead. And that was funny. Oh, my Lord. Okay, so with that, now we have an abrupt change in tone and gears, because I'm going to jump right into the deadly serious aspects of all this, because it's not really a joke. Austin Metcalf is dead. He had his heart cut out of him by this demon for no reason. And this demon, in doing that, created a destruction, a wound in the world that will never, never fully heal. Certainly not for the family of Austin Metcalf. They got to make some witness victim statements, I should say, to Karmelo Anthony's face yesterday in court. He would not even look at them. He kept his eyes down the entire time. And I'd said yesterday, and I feel bad about saying this now because I wasn't aware of these statements at the time. I said, his parents don't really seem to have any fire in the belly, the anger over this. Because right after it happened, I remember his father was Austin Metcalf's father came across as very conciliatory. Well, he's not feeling that way now, the father or the mother. This is the father here in his victim statement yesterday, talking to Karmelo Anthony. You're free to make choices, but you're not free from the consequences, and you will face those consequences starting today. Convict murderer. People think grief is sadness, but it's not. It's rage. I'd say it's also pain. The father slammed his hand on the table. Pure, unfiltered rage. You, Karmelo, failed your parents. You failed yourself. You failed society. You don't belong in this community. You're going to prison. You can't even look me in the eyes right now, but you had no problem stabbing my effing son in the heart. When I was in college, I was in a lot of creative writing courses. In fact, my undergrad degree is English literature, centered on creative writing. I fancied myself something of a future novelist. And I remember a lot of what I wrote were short stories. And I wrote a short story about a prisoner who'd been locked up for many years. And it was finally time for him. His sentence was over. Time for him to be released. And he wouldn't go. He wouldn't leave his cell. They had to drag him out. They had to drag him out, haul him to the prison doors, and throw him out of the prison into the street. And the reason he didn't want to go was because in my fictional little world of this short story, the moment you were thrown out of prison, you were no longer under the protection of the state. And the family of the victims got to exact their own justice from you. And they were there, waiting for him, right then. Would that be a worse world than we have today? I don't know. I think reasonable people could differ. Marianne Martinez, who did great reporting on this case, citing the mother, giving a victim impact statement. You may have Austin Metcalf's mother, of course, you may have just given a sentence of 35 years behind bars. You can consider yourself lucky because I've been sentenced to a lifetime without my son. Zachary Werrell, who's a lawyer down in Texas, he and I had some communication about this case. He was very helpful, given his Texas lawyer expertise. So well worth a follow. He did a poll. Karmelo Anthony was sentenced to 35 years for murder. What do you think the punishment should have been? I'm just gonna click public hanging. Only 25%. Unbelievable. Life without parole, 99 years, public hanging, 17%. 35 years was just. Does it feel just? We talked about the sentencing yesterday for several hours during our live stream. I somehow don't feel that it quite went far enough. New mugshot. This is the hair Karmelo Anthony had in during the trial. They did away with this look. Well, I didn't want that. Let me try again. I just want a picture. Folks, I don't want the video. Images. I'll just do it this way. The hair he had when he killed, brutally murdered Austin Metcalf was, of course, this hair. sometimes referred to as tarantula hair. But they cleaned him up for trial, made him look like this. Didn't help. J.D. Miles, another reporter out of Dallas who's been covering this trial, new mugshot of Karmelo Anthony in the Collin County Jail as he spends the first night of his 35-year sentence for murder. He'll likely be transported to prison in the coming days, so jail, of course, is the local lockdown. Prison is where they hold you for the duration of your sentence. You think when Karmelo Anthony gets to prison, maybe he sits down at a table to have lunch, a bologna sandwich, and an inmate walks in and tells him, move? You think he'll move? Or you'll think he'll adopt the attitude, the contentious, outraged, murderous attitude he had with Austin Metcalf for simply being asked to leave that tent? I think Karmelo Anthony will move. I think he'll move. And one of the longer-term consequences of this trial has been the degree to which it's just exposed the level of delusion, estrogenically emotional, irrational, unreasoned, racist, black supremacist hatred of white people and our judicial system, the fairest in the world, by such a large swath of the black population. Now, not all. I've got a bunch of tabs I'm going to share with you with perfectly reasonable black people out there on social media. I have a lot of black people who are my friends. They're rational people. My dream Supreme Court is 9 Clarence Thomases. If you don't know, he happens to be black. Some of my personal heroes are people like Thomas Sowell, Walter Williams, now gone, I believe. So it's certainly not all, but it's a substantial chunk. And they are crazy. And they are explicitly anti-white racist. And pro-black racist. No facts or reason will compel them to act against their race, no matter how guilty the defendant who happens to be black. We had a number of prospective jurors for this trial who were black, and when asked by the court, listen, we'd like to seat you as a juror. All you need to do is tell us that you can be unbiased and impartial. And they said, I can't. I can't do it to a black boy. That's why those weren't seated. Now, there were a few other prospective black jurors who were not seated for other reasons. I'm laughing because, once again, I'm talking about Robert Barnes. I can't believe it. But it's just what he's doing with respect to this case is just so funny to me. But we'll get to Robert later. But these people are completely delusional, utterly delusional. Oh, let me. I'm not doing a good job keeping up with super chats and stuff. Let me grab this and a Rumble rant. A Rumble rant came in early, and of course, it's Gito463. Always so generous. $20? Is that $20? $10. Anthony should have gotten 30 days in jail, then off to the executioner. No appeal. That would be one way to do things, right? I mean, public executions used to be common in America. Used to be the norm. And some super chats. A new member, 2 new members. Oh my gosh, I feel so bad now because I have some news for today. Candy Cane Beyond became a new member. Thank you. Welcome to the family. An XC Runner just became a YouTube member. That means they get to join us for our members-only show. So our normal practice is we do an open access show like this for everybody. And then we transition into a members-only show just for our members. Membership's dirt cheap. It's only 16 cents a day, $5 a month on YouTube or on Locals. And so our normal practice is we do 2 shows back to back, open access and then members. And we have these new members, and and Stephen just gifted 5 memberships. I can't do a member show today. That's why I feel guilty. I'm sorry. Most of you know that we're in the process of moving out of the hellscape that has Colorado has become to Knoxville. And for the next month or so, the programming is going to be a little bit chaotic. I'm going to try to keep the same time of day for the open access show, but it's going to be a little hectic and ad hoc, and I apologize for that. But those of you who have moved, long distances, 1,000+ miles, you know how complicated it is. So there won't be a members only show today. I have some moving stuff I have to take care of. But I love all you members. As you know, I love all of you in the Branca Show community, but I love the members a little bit more because YouTube doesn't let us make ad revenue. So really the only support we have is through the memberships, the 16 cents a day. We try to keep it cheap on an individual basis, but I can assure you in the collective, it makes a huge difference. Jacob Schilling, $2, says he was placed in isolation. Why do you think? They just don't want it, the jail. The sheriff just doesn't want anything bad to happen to him on his watch. He's high profile. It's just the safest thing to do. Just put him in isolation. Citizen E22, $10. Thank you very much. When the U.S. elected Barack Hussein Obama as president, we were delusional to think that this ridiculous hatred would fizzle away. We were wrong. Well, it's been my life experience that it was mostly gone. Until Barack Obama came along. It was declining, this kind of racial hatred, intensity from the black community, by the way, not from the white community. The racists in America today are not the white people. The demand for white racism is vastly greater than the actual supply of white racism. The racism today comes from the non-white people. We'll see this when we look at how they conduct themselves in jury trials when they're evaluating members of their own ethnic group versus white people. They don't like us very much, and they're not shy about acting on it. White people have been brainwashed and conditioned for generations to just pretend that like racism is not a part of the human character. Like it's. You want to see racism. You want to see how human character really works? Take a vacation in Europe, travel around from country to country, and just ask everybody in whatever country you're in how they really think about the other countries. Ask the Germans about the French. Ask the French about the British. Ask the Belgians about anybody. And they generally only have negative things to say. This is human nature. This is part of evolutionary biology. To favor in-group preference. That's how you survive. We live in a world of scarce resources. So, of course, the government shouldn't be racist, and every individual should be judged as an individual. But if you're talking group dynamics and you don't have an in-group preference, you're eradicated from the face of the earth. Your genetic line just stops. Not worth preserving. That's just reality. That's just simple reality. Another Rumble rant. Let me pull this up. King of Biltong. Oh, I was supposed to reach out to you, man. I think he sent me your email address. I would like to send you some biltong, if at all possible. If you want to look at what we do, we are at Biltong USA. I'm going to make a note of this, man. And thank you for the $20. I meant to follow up, but I've been traveling for the Tim Pool show and stuff. It's been crazy, but I really appreciate that. I will follow up. I promise. I promise. Andrew should live in the country. I'm almost moving to the country. Almost moving to the country. Super chat. Member for 10 months. Thank you so much for that support. Robbie Lightspeed. Andrew, you're going to make a fine Southern gentleman. Welcome to the region. I'm bringing a lot of guns with me. I'm bringing a lot of guns and ammo. And I got to tell you, it's a huge pain in the butt. Moving guns and ammo. I mean, the moving companies don't want to deal with it. They will not take the ammo. And I have a lot of ammo. I have ammo for guns I don't even own anymore. I got a bunch of 40 Smith & Wesson. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I haven't owned a 40 Smith & Wesson in 10 or 15 years. But I used to shoot it competitively, so I have just a ton of ammo. And ammo, if you don't know, it's heavy. And the moving companies will not transport it. I have to figure something out. I need a friend with a pickup truck who's willing to drive 1,000 miles. Oh, first world problems, I guess. Let's see. Talker. Wow, the super chats are pouring in. An innocent per $10. Thank you, man. An innocent person would welcome the opportunity to tell his side of the story. I guess Mello didn't want the world to hear his side. I'm going to talk about that later for obvious reasons. Yeah, the reasons are pretty obvious to me. This one I just got, Robbie Lightspeed. Thank you, man. Michael, $5, says, it's time for the video of the incident to be released to the public, uncensored and uncut. We know what we're going to see, though, right? Yeah, I want the video, too. You know, a terrible problem with this judge not streaming this video. He probably, I'm sure he thought he was doing the right thing, right? Helping to avoid, I don't know what he thought he was helping to avoid. But one of the big problems we have in these cases is that these black extremists just make up lies. They make up utter lies, completely false narratives about these cases. Like George Zimmerman got out of his car despite being told by the police not to get out of his car. That never happened. And we know for a fact it never happened because we had access to the evidence and we could watch the trial in real time. Kyle Rittenhouse shot 3 black people. That never happened. Everybody Kyle Rittenhouse shot was white. I mean, they turned out to be pedos and wife beaters and stuff, but they were all white. They just make up these abject lies. And we know the Rittenhouse one is a lie because we could watch the trial. And now they're making up the same kind of utter lies that this was a beatdown of Karmelo Anthony. Complete fabrication. But the window, the opportunity for these black extremists to make up these abject lies about the case is only wider because the judge did not stream the trial. I can't point to the actual streamed testimony to prove them wrong. I have to rely on reporters' accounts, which, listen, the reporters did a good job here. I cited many of them, and I'm appreciative of the work they did. But it's not the same thing as me seeing the testimony, me being able to clip it, preserve it, counter-argue with it. So, yeah, we should see it. But we know what this video is going to show. It's going to show there was no beatdown. It's going to show a quick second of movement that could only be 1 or 2 people. And that would be when Austin Metcalf reached out to touch the demon Karmelo Anthony's shoulder, and Karmelo Anthony cut his heart out. That's what the jury saw. If this had been a group beatdown, Memorial High School students beating Karmelo Anthony, that would have looked like at least possible, reasonable argument for self-defense there, but we know that didn't happen. Jerry Winfrey, $10, says, after watching the glory that was the sentencing yesterday, I discovered my $250 bill mug in the mailbox. How about that? It's been a long time since I've had a day that complete. He's talking about this mug, folks, this mug. This is my Trump $250 note mugshot mug. It's Trump's mugshot. We put these together for Father's Day. With that prompt, let me pull up the promo for it. Father's Day is June 21st. So let me share with you what we have. I have this QR code. The link for the mug is it's the pinned comment in the chat. All right. It's also in the description for the show. But we have a bunch of stuff, and we added a new item. Look there on the left. So when you click the link, it'll take you to this page. This mug is the middle image right there. But we added a travel mug. So now there's a travel mug option. Looks just like that. So if you'd like a travel mug version, and I had to make the bill smaller. There's legal reasons, the dimensions the bill is allowed to be. But pretty much the only place I could put the bill in big form was on the big mug. But we have normal size mugs. We have different kinds of travel mugs. We have koozies. We have tumblers, cell phone cases, T-shirts, coasters, mouse pads. But by far, the huge mug, as we call it, the Trump 250 note huge mug is the most popular. I do caution, it takes about a week for the mug to get to you. Father's Day is June 21st, which is a week from this Sunday. It's Wednesday now, a week from this Sunday. It takes about a week for the mug to get to you. You want to be able to hand it to your dad on Father's Day. Now is the time to order it. And you can just scan that QR code with your phone. It'll take you right to that page. Or again, the link is the pinned comment and also in the description. But, the days are getting short to order this stuff and have it in hand. Listen, if your dad loves Trump, Imagine how much he's going to love this mug. He's going to love this mug. And if your dad hates Trump, even better, buy him two. Buy him 2 mugs, and he can smash them together. Buy him 6 mugs and a hammer from Home Depot, all in one package. Hand it to him, and he can spend a happy afternoon smashing Trump mug after Trump mug. You think that won't be one of the most memorable Father's Days he's ever had? You will rise in the ranks of that will, my friends. I promise you that. I am, after all, an attorney. Justin Wright, member for 9 months. I had minimal racist encounters growing up in Madison, Wisconsin, a hotbed of activism. Moved into Madison in 92 and graduated 03. I saw the extreme turn while in Iraq for 09. Obama was elected 08, of course, when Obama's policies trickled into the military. Justin Wright, $5, says, I drive a semi-truck. Want my company info to see if we can make a deal on moving. Yeah, sure, man. Andrew at lawselfdefense.com. Just send me an email or DM me on X. We're taking quotes now. We haven't picked a mover yet, so we're taking quotes. It's expensive to move from Denver to Knoxville. I can tell you that much. Premium pod clips, $10. Hear from Myron Gaines. You do great work. Well, thank you, my friend. Yeah, Myron's a great guy. I like hanging out with him. What do we do when they figure out all they have to do is lie to get on the jury, like Brandon Mitchell did on the Derek Chauvin case? Yeah, they do it all the time. They do it all the time. I remember, I think the first time I saw this in a high-profile case was the George Zimmerman jury selection, which went on for days and days and days. And I remember in particular one long-haired, hippie-looking guy. Oh, of course, we didn't know what he looked like during voir dire, but he was exposed later, so we saw what he looked like. And he's being questioned by the defense, and he's like, no, sir, I can be impartial. I can be unbiased. I have no preconceived opinions about this case. Please put me on the jury. Well, the Zimmerman defense team was very well resourced. It wasn't just Don West and Mark O'Mara, who was what we mostly saw in the courtroom, the 2 defense attorneys. They had a team behind them. And what that team was doing in the background while they were questioning these prospective jurors was going on the internet, looking at their Facebook pages, looking at all this stuff, MySpace maybe, who knows. And they found a web page that this particular prospective juror was running. It was his. That basically was a lynch George Zimmerman social justice webpage. So this guy was going to lie his way onto the jury, and you would never have had an acquittal. So yeah, they'll lie for social justice all the time. And it happened. It wasn't just Brandon Mitchell in the Derek Chauvin case. There were other, like, you can't see them. They don't show you the jurors during selection, but you hear them talking, and you can kind of tell it's a purple-haired Karen, right, a white girl, and just lying and lying, and every word you're hearing out of her mouth, it's a lie. It's an utter lie. They will lie themselves onto those juries. It's terrible. Bounty Hunt Gal, $10. Thank you for all the work you do. Well, thank you for being here, and thank you for the $10. Jimmy from Philly. That's a great name. $5. Have you ever seen Bruce Rivers take on this? How is this guy taken seriously by anyone? I don't know that I know who Bruce Rivers is. Is he a lawyer? The name is vaguely familiar. Oh, that guy. I see his picture now. Yeah, okay. I've seen some of his content on his YouTube channel, and there's a reason I don't make use of his content. Let me just put it that way. Got that one already. Doug Allen, $10, says, received my 20-ounce mug today after ordering it the minute you rolled it out for the win. Looks great. I think it's one of the, we do a new mug every month. So you go to that link, you'll see a bunch of Branca for SCOTUS. Branca, that's me. For SCOTUS. I am a member, by the way. I'm like practically halfway to being a Supreme Court justice. I am a member of the Supreme Court bar. That's my certificate right there over my shoulder. Just one little baby step more, and I'll be a justice on the Supreme Court. if I wasn't too advanced in years for it, we really need a 40 something. But I'd hold the spot. I'd hold the seat until you found a good replacement, and then I would go on my way. I promise you. You can trust me. I'm not like all the others. J620, $10, says, what I say to my white son, some neighbors bring fists to a verbal fight, knives to a fist fight, and guns to a knife fight. Unless you're willing to do the same, do not engage. Just walk away. Yeah, generally it's best not to be getting into fights you don't need to be getting into. And unfortunately, there's a dynamic with the white community where there are some black people who like to bait fights, who like to act in outrageous, socially negative ways to provoke confrontation, have an excuse to use, even with police officers, not uncommonly with police officers. And if they'll do it with police officers, why wouldn't they do it with you? I have a few tabs on that we'll get to in a bit. And it's very dangerous because they'll literally kill you. They'll kill you over nothing. Just like Karmelo Anthony killed Austin Metcalf over nothing. Scorpion Black Dragon, $5. I carry a company Glock 23. Oh, how about that? Your Smith & Wesson 40 ammo could find a home with a security company. Call around. Yeah, that actually makes sense. Security companies, they're not too they're not too particular about the caliber they carry. And there's nothing wrong with the 40 Smith & Wesson. By the way, it's a little sharper recoil compared to a 9, and it's a little more wear and tear on the gun. I tell you this though, I was shooting it competitively, and when you shoot competitively, you generally reload your own ammo. At least we all did back in the day. And reloading 40 Smith & Wesson it's a real pain in the ass compared to reloading 45 or reloading 9. That's ultimately why I gave up. And today everybody just competes with 9mm. I actually gave away my reloading press, my Dillon 650 XL I had for almost 30 years because everyone just shoots 9. You just go buy 1,000 rounds of 9. That's all. I don't think anybody reloads anymore. I'll take a look at that. The Good Life 1990 member for 6 months. Can we send a copy of The Law of Self-Defense? That's my book. To a certain prisoner at Collin County Jail. Should I do that? That's a thought. Oh my gosh. But can he read? I'm going to have to give that some thought. That would be pretty funny. I remember after the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, Nick Rekieta and I, we covered that trial together. We intended to get a whole case of my book, my law self-defense book, and bring him to the prosecutor's office, bring him to Binger's office. But by the time we were able to coordinate it, so much time had passed that it just didn't make any sense anymore. Matt, $5. If you're having your cars transported, stash the ammo in the trunk. But they'll have keys to the car, right? Doesn't the transporter necessarily have keys to your cars? They don't want the ammo. They pop the trunk, the ammo's in there. And anyway, we're driving the car. I am having my motorcycles shipped. I am having the motorcycle shipped. I guess I have big panniers on the motorcycles. It would make them really heavy, though. Panniers full of lead would make, I wouldn't want to ride it that way, that's for sure. SB99865, $5 says, sorry, off topic, but is there an update on Dalton? I don't have an update on Dalton. I did check on his bail situation. For some reason, I had come to think that he'd coordinated the 10 bail bonding companies he needed. I don't believe that's true. He's still being held. So I was mistaken about that. So the only update is my error. All right, let's get back to on topic. So the delusion of not all, but a large swath of the black community on this and other similar cases is amazing. Here's a clip from Savannah Hernandez, who I think I've shared this clip before, but it's so compelling, and I have many more to share with all of you. Here she is interviewing this black woman, basically asking her, hey, and this is mid-trial, hey, if the evidence develops that Karmelo Anthony is guilty, would you support his conviction? And the black lady's like, no, I don't give an F. I don't care if he's guilty or not. He's a black boy. Listen to this.
if evidence does come out that Karmelo was not in fact fighting for his life when he stabbed and killed Austin Metcalf, do you think that the Black community will accept that?
If evidence shows that he did not, no, we're going to stand by ours regardless. They stand by theirs.
So reality has no meaning to them. Facts, law, reason, none of that matters. The entire criminal justice system, the adversarial process, the right to counsel, right to produce evidence, right to face your accuser, having an impartial judge and an impartial jury, none of that means shit to these people. This entire fundamental pillar of white civilization, they don't give a shit about that. They just want a very tribal justice. He's a black boy. We're going to stand by him. It doesn't matter what the facts, law, or evidence are. It just doesn't matter. This account, Josh Denny notes, the greatest part of this Karmelo Anthony verdict is that it's an undeniable litmus test for where people stand in the country. Firstly, there are good, moral black people out there. Yes, absolutely. I'm going to share some of them with you. Calling this one down the line, and rightly so. Nothing presented in this case was anything other than damning for Karmelo, the murderer, Anthony. Not even a shred of evidence to present the possibility of doubt for the jury. I think that, I don't know if the prosecution did this, but I think the prosecution would have been well within its rights to tell the judge after everybody rested, all the evidence that's going to be presented has been presented, to go to the judge and say, Your Honor, we object to a self-defense jury instruction. There is nothing in this case to support a claim of self-defense. Nothing. Which would, of course, have left Karmelo Anthony with no defense and an automatic, for pragmatic purposes, conviction. Obviously, the judge didn't want to do that, but it took the jury like 90 minutes to arrive at a guilty verdict on murder after hearing all the self-defense testimony the defense had to offer. Josh continues, the black people defending Karmelo, holding him up as some kind of civil rights martyr, will never place anything over being black. Not right or wrong, not facts, not truth, nothing. Is it possible to be more racist than that? These people are so blinded by a worldview of black victimhood that they believe they're always under attack. Therefore, their violent outbursts are always justified. That is just incompatible with civil society. And there's way too much of it. I mean, where's the lie? Where's the lie? This guy, Matt, responds, we have to call those people out and shame them for as long as it takes. But they're shameless. You can't shame people who are shameless. It should not be comfortable for them to say the shit they have been saying, justifying murder because they want to protect a man simply for being black. I'm so done with this shit. Stop infantilizing the black community. They can do better. But can this swath of the black, can they do better? I mean, I'm open to persuasion. I'm not seeing it. And again, I'm just talking about this particular swath of the black community. There are great black people out there. They're honest, diligent, hardworking, productive. They recognize reason and law and facts. They know Karmelo Anthony murdered this poor kid, Austin Metcalf. That's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about these people. These people. Like, like, how do you have a civil society?
What do you want us to do?
That's right.
What do you want us to do at this point? What? I'm lost for words. I don't know what to do. I got 5 boys. I don't know what. I ain't got nothing to tell them no more. You can't walk away no more.
You can't walk away no more. You can't walk away. The only thing they were asking Karmelo Anthony to do was to walk away. No one was preventing him from walking away. You can't walk away. That's all he had to do. Look at this loon. in the face of a white guy.
The judge as well in this case that it was not a case about race, but you cannot deny that just the facts of the case and what we've seen play out
in a trial where the stakes are life and death, right? Someone's been murdered. Someone's looking at life in prison. This is this swath of the black community. Is that reason? Is that reason? And this is this is very funny. This is very funny. This is what's his name? Elijah Schaffer, who's a rather controversial figure in social media. He's kind of, I've never met him. I have no personal interaction with him, but he is a friend of a friend. So he's a friend of my buddy Nick Rekieta. And he did a very funny thing. He was outside the courthouse, and there was a bunch of black people, pro Carmela, Team Carmela, had set up a pop-up tent. And he walked over and they ordered him away and threw water bottles at him until he went away. The irony. Karmelo Anthony refused to leave a tent and killed someone rather than leave. And yet when a white person they don't like walks up to their tent, they turn violent, excluding him and driving him off. Watch this.
Yes, we're just here with press just to record and talk to you guys or see what's going on. Okay. It's a free country. You're in public. You're in public. Okay. Okay. Well, you're in public.
By the way, look at these physiques. Oh my God, America's starving, oppressed. Poor people in America. They carry a burden. It's mostly fat.
Look, I'm just asking. Yeah.
They don't want to be recorded, bro.
Whoa.
Oh.
It's free speech. That's free speech. Why are you throwing stuff at us? Yeah, why are you throwing stuff at us? What the hell is that? All right, well, they're throwing water bottles at us while we're recording.
The irony. It's delicious if it wasn't so disgusting. Kevin Bass here. Let me make this bigger. Whoops. Did that work? Okay. The most shameful part of the murder by Karmelo Anthony is how the black community rallied behind this demon. The most shameful part of the death of George Floyd is how the black community rioted and murdered in response. The problem with the black community is that it rallies behind criminals so long as they are black and they are pitted against whites. The black community endorses criminality. It's openly racist against whites, and the anti-white racism is overwhelming. And somehow we're supposed to be okay with this. They are racist. Again, this particular swath of the black community, not everybody. They are racist, and they endorse criminality and even riot and murder. And they do. We'll see a post about it. And the worse their behavior is, the more we're supposed to think they are the victims. That's not how this works, or is supposed to work in a civilized society. When a person murders someone else in cold blood, that person is a predator. When a community rallies behind a predator who murders in cold blood, that community is evil. I concur. A community is not more of a victim the more evil it behaves. Evil does not magically transform into victimhood because a person or community is black. There's not one standard for right or wrong based on skin color. Murdering someone else does make someone a victim. It makes someone else an evil murderer. And white liberals who get this backwards, who dismiss the blood of innocent victims and who call murderers victims, these white liberals are evil. Evil should capitalize that. It would be nice if we could say that this is all a matter of opinion, that good and evil are relative and so on, but death, murder, the celebration of death and murder, the excusing of murderers, all of these have real-world consequences. They destroy people's lives. They're not theoretical issues. These are innocent lives of people who might have someday contributed to society, taken for no reason in cold blood. Murder is not relative or theoretical. It's evil. Whether or not murder is evil does not depend on skin color. Murder is evil, period. Where is the lie? Oh, got some more super chats. I'm gonna keep putting this mug up because you only have a few more days, folks. Only a few more days for this if you want it to arrive on time. So the QR code or the link is pinned in the comments. Jacob Schilling, $2. Did you see Jasmine Crockett's comments? Yeah, we're going to look at those. That's one of the tabs I set aside. Justin Wright, I sent the email from, okay, I'll check it out, man. Thank you. Jimmy from Philly, $5. Since the family grifted money for attorney's fees and they never hired a lawyer, could that be considered criminal? You know, I have to be honest, I'm not sure what the whole deal is with the lawyer situation. I see such different reporting. I see AI getting it wrong when people ask them. Karmelo Anthony definitely filed for indigent status for a public defender at one point in the proceedings. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're getting a public defender. Sometimes it's just boilerplate paperwork a lawyer submits. And Mike Howard, who I believe was his lead counsel, is a private attorney, not normally a public defender. In any case, I mean, I don't know what the family did with that money. You know, they strike me as the kind of people that could win a $10 million lottery and be broke again the next year. So I don't know what they did with the money. E-Citizen, E22, $5. Thank you very much. Several starving Danielles under that tent. Graceful as hippos. And a couple Rumble rants. Do you think Danielle is still starving? People may not know who Danielle is. Let me pull up Danielle. Danielle was briefly famous because she, during the food stamp shutdown, let's see. I do have it. Oh, that's not the one I want. Hold on. Danielle Grant. Yeah, I found it. And so the food stamps were shut down and the news media was reporting on how people were starving. This is like one day in. People are starving and they found this woman, Danielle Grant.
It's really bad. Danielle Grant is starving. I'm trying to see if I can get some food. It's really bad. Danielle Grant is starving. I'm trying to see if I can get some food.
Well, I presume she got some food. You think she's even bigger than she is here once she found some food? You think that saved her? Poor Danielle Grant. America's starving oppressed. Let's see. Oh man, my eyes are not working very well today. Manolo 81 gifted 5 subscriptions on Rumble. Thank you so much, my friend. That's super generous. And I think from there I'm caught up on the Rumble rants. Got another couple super chats. You guys are very generous. A new member, welcome to the family, Dirt Poor Homesteader. And premium pod clips, $10 per a streamer, sponsored by Dual, working closely with the Chud case. The money for Chud is there. They're making them jump through endless hoops and use 10 bail bondsmen, but he should be out in days. Okay, well, that would be good if they can make that happen. I think Chud, and this is not a Dalton Etherly show, but I'll just say in passing because it came up. I think Chud Dalton is in great shape on the legal merits of his use of force. It looks like a very sound self-defense case to me. His danger is political. His danger is that he's well outside the Overton window when it comes to things like using the N-word. And I know he has his defenders, and I'm sympathetic to those arguments. The question is, will the jury hear those arguments in a rational way, or are they just going to viscerally respond negatively to a white guy using the N-word to black people to their face on video? That's the dilemma. Not the legal merits on the use of force. Gorilla Balls, $10. Wake up, America. BLM and the Republic of New Africa intend to take over 5 southeastern states to form an armed black utopia. Fact. Can someone point me to the state or the county or the city that's run entirely by black people that is productive in a place you'd want to live? Does such a thing exist? Or flip it. Can someone point me to the third world country that's largely white people? I don't worry about people doing things they're incapable of doing. Mary Weddington, $10, says heartbreaking. The whole thing is heartbreaking. There is no justice that we can extract from Karmelo Anthony that can ever compensate for the loss of Austin Metcalf. It's just even if Karmelo Anthony were to be publicly hung, can't make up the loss. It's impossible. It's impossible because you can't bring Austin back, unfortunately. All right, let's see. Next set of tabs. Sorry, folks. I got to clean up my workspace here a little bit. Let's see. I don't think that's the one I want yet. I think the one I want. No, I think this is the one. This is the Jasmine Crockett. Someone had brought her up. Let's take a look. Jasmine, a black female congresswoman from Texas whose district just got obliterated when Texas redistricted. So she'll be gone. She'll no longer be in Congress. But she has thoughts. She has thoughts. This actually isn't all that bad for Austin Metcalf and his family. It's not that bad. I mean, relatively, it's not that bad. You know who has it way worse than Austin Metcalf? Black girls. Black girls have it worse every single day that they're alive than does Austin Metcalf, who's dead at the hands of the demon that walks this earth in the form of Karmelo Anthony. Let's hear what good old Jasmine has to say.
Black women, especially Black women who have Black male children, live in fear and agony every single day.
By the way, the tent, Austin Metcalf's tent, that Karmelo Anthony invaded was packed with Black student athletes from Austin Metcalf's school. Most of the student athletes who testified at this trial were Black. Did they stab anybody that day? Were they threatened by white people that day? What distinguishes them from Karmelo Anthony? Well, Karmelo Anthony is a demon who shoved a knife into someone's chest.
Fear and agony that I promise you, the Metcalfs probably never spent a day living that way.
Yeah, they never spent a day living that way. They just lived the rest of their lives knowing that a little Black demon killed their son, took him away forever at the age of 17. But at least they don't have to live with the anguish of a Black woman who's got a Black son who might shove a knife into someone's chest. That's what we're supposed to take away from Jasmine Crockett. It's unbelievable. Black women live in agony every day that I promise the Metcalfs have never lived through, she says. And Matt Von Swall, who's a good follow on X, he says, so just to be clear, all Black women, all of them, 100% of Black women live in greater agony every day just by being Black and alive and women than a family whose son was stabbed to death. How do you live in a cohesive structure with people who achieve positions of power? She's currently a congresswoman, who see the world in this racist way. Savannah Hernandez notes, this is the result of decades of this country pandering to Black people so much that they now think their mere existence is more painful than a mother whose son was murdered. The majority of Black culture is violent and has been a net negative on society. Shame on their all. Say, well, that's a little extreme, Andrew. It's not like the pro Karmelo people are advocating violence, rioting, looting, arson. No, they literally are. And this is one of the most prominent pro Karmelo camp people. Goes by the Black Tucker Carlson. This is what he's posting. Free Karmelo Anthony and the Summer of Love. the riot, looting, and arson, the Marxist power fist, young black men exulting over the destruction of billions of dollars of someone else's property. That's what he's endorsing with posts like this. Green Beret Naptime says, this is why the black community is in shambles, because of people like this guy. Black males, 14 to 55 years old, make up only about 4% of the U.S. population, but are responsible for over 50% of all murders, more than 60% of all violent crime as a category. Now he wants black people to burn down their own buildings, well, they're other people's buildings, because a murderer was convicted of murder. Insanely anti-American. It is anti-American. It's inconsistent with living in a first world republic. This is stuff you expect to see out of a primitive African nation, no? Mibs OE says, black kids are the only kids who can't afford to make mistakes without dire consequences. They can't afford to make mistakes. That post, that laughable post, got 635,000 views. 635,000 views. All, don't you know, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, all my client did, all Karmelo Anthony did was he just made a mistake. And now you're going to make him live with dire consequences? That's not right. Murder is just a mistake. Shoving a knife, cutting out a human heart over nothing. It's just a mistake. It's just a mistake. As Rothmus notes, I didn't know I didn't follow Rothmus. I'll give him a follow right now. A mistake is accidentally stepping on someone's shoe and saying, oops, sorry, my bad, bro. Stabbing someone in the heart is first-degree murder. It's a different thing. It's not a mistake. Lighten up the mood a little bit. Someone asked about the $600,000 they raised supposedly for legal defenses. And here we have the Dame Ramsey meme. He does these phone calls, right? Call-in show. He asks people questions. This is him talking in the meme. So a bunch of idiots donated $600,000 to you for your legal defense? That's right, Dave. And your family spent it all on bottles of Hennessy, jars of Kool-Aid pineapples, 2 new Cadillac Escalades, and rented a $1 million home? Uh-huh. So you ended up with a third-rate defense team and you were found guilty of first-degree murder in less than 3 hours? Sure enough, Dave. It's very funny. But I have to say, this criticism of his defense team, I think it's probably off the mark. This person also asks about it, says, layman question, what about the inadequate defense? His attorney did try to say that Metcalf fell on the knife, which to me raises serious questions about the attorney's legal state of competency. Here, I'll show you my buddy Bill Shipley, shipwreck crew, former federal prosecutor, defense attorney for many January 6th defendants, writes, no, Karmelo Anthony had a very high-quality criminal defense team. They had no meaningful way to help him to get to manslaughter or an option other than murder. That's all they were looking for, was to try to get the judge to give the jury the manslaughter instruction and hope to God that there was some sympathy on the jury to take that exit short of the murder conviction. The fact that it didn't work doesn't mean it was the wrong choice given their limited options. So here's the thing, folks, just to remind all of you, a lot of people have the sentiment that, hey, if I get in legal trouble, I'll just hire a lawyer, right? That's what lawyers do. They get you out of legal trouble. And I as a lawyer, I appreciate that vote of confidence. But even the best lawyers, even me, we're stuck with the facts that you give us. If you give us bad facts, it's going to be a very difficult legal defense. You give us good facts, we can make you very hard to convict. When you give us bad facts, we don't have a time machine. We can't go back and change what you did. It just doesn't work that way. And Karmelo Anthony gave his lawyers nothing but bad facts. Nothing but bad facts. They just had nothing to work with. But people, they want to blame anything but Karmelo Anthony. She shine. See what she looks like. Hey, she's got a bachelor's in public relations and a minor in African American studies. You can't make this shit up. This is right out of Central Casting. She writes, Karmelo should get another trial. His lawyer was incompetent, and his family is foul for letting him go through this with a public defender. Again, I'm not sure it was a public defender. I will say, by the way, some of the best attorneys I've ever worked with have been public defenders. A public defender is a great position to be in to get a lot of trial experience, a lot of courtroom experience very, very quickly. So just because someone's a public defender doesn't mean they're somehow inherently incapable. A lot of public defenders are world-class attorneys. But she's only saying the lawyer was incompetent because she doesn't like the outcome. She doesn't like the guilty verdict. Throughout the trial, I saw all these racist black supremacists throughout the trial were saying, it's going great. It's going great. He's going to get acquitted. It was the same legal team when they were saying that. They didn't have a problem. This person responds, his lawyer was quite competent, tried everything. But the problem is the witnesses all helped the prosecution. The video helped the prosecution. The timeline helped the prosecution. The problem for Karmelo's lawyer is that his client was factually guilty of murder. And all the evidence pointed in that direction. Roscoe Smith here notes, last thoughts on Karmelo Anthony before he disappears for a long time. The defense only called 6 witnesses. 6 witnesses. And rested abruptly. The only person to speak on Karmelo's behalf during the punishment phase, after the guilt phase, after the guilty verdict, was his mother, not even his father. The defense didn't even think to prepare him to testify in his own behalf. He could have testified on his own behalf. He could have taken the stand during his trial. I'm sure just, that 2.5 hour delay we had on the last day of testimony, and then abruptly the defense came back and rested. They knew they were effed. They knew they were effed. They knew they were on the high-speed rail in California, the high-speed rail to a guilty verdict on murder. And the only hope they would have to divert that would be for Karmelo Anthony to take the stand and testify in a way that would change reality. Change reality. It was the only source. Every witness they had to present either didn't actually see anything or what they had to say was negative for Karmelo. The only source for testimony that could be positive for Karmelo about the facts of the case was going to come from Karmelo. This is why I was scared. This is what I saw happening. These were my fears. This is why they were reasonable. And they didn't put him on the stand. Their only hope was Karmelo. And they couldn't put him on the stand. Why? Because they didn't believe he would be able to help himself. They had to believe he, if he were to testify, would only make things worse. That he would be crucified on cross-examination. Also, that once he's a witness, it opens the door to all kinds of evidence about his character, about prior other wrongs he may have committed that are excluded as long as he's not a witness, and allow it in as soon as he is a witness. Once he's a witness, his testimony is subject to challenge on credibility and other bases like any other witness. They couldn't put him on. To save himself, they couldn't put him on, knowing that not putting him on doomed him to a conviction on murder. They still couldn't put him on. They still couldn't. And then when it came to the sentencing phase, his mother shows up, and she doesn't say things that are helpful. I mean, she doesn't know anything about the events. She wasn't there. She can't say, no, Austin Metcalf was reaching for a weapon. She wasn't there. But she didn't even argue in the interest of her son. She argued in her own interest. He's my firstborn. He's my son. Do it for me. I mean, it was pathetic. And his father didn't even show up, much less speak. And of course, again, Karmelo Anthony could have taken the stand and begged for mercy himself. And they couldn't afford to put him on the stand. That's how much of a demon this character is. The defense only called 6 witnesses and rested abruptly. The only person to speak on his behalf was his mother. Defense didn't even think to prepare him to testify on his own. Maybe they tried to prepare him. Can you imagine the dry runs they did back at the lawyer's office in the conference room? All right, Karmelo, you're on the witness stand. We're going to pretend we're the prosecution and subject you to cross-examination. First question. Boom. We're not doing that. We're definitely not doing that. Roscoe Smith continues, additionally, there were no teachers, no counselors, no church members, nobody willing to discuss his character in court in a positive way and plead for him to have another chance at life. Nobody could vouch that he was a really good kid and was going to be a contributing member of society someday. Nobody. I don't think his mother even said those words. He just had a bad day, a one instant of misjudgment. Please, he's normally a good kid. Nobody was available to say those words. The jury heard closing statements, deliberated, found him guilty, then completed the punishment phase all in one day. In other words, there was no way to adequately defend or humanize this, I'm going to say demon instead of the word that's actually there. Dre Baldwin talking about appeals. Appeals in the state of Texas is only for legal errors, insufficient evidence, procedural mistakes, evidentiary rulings, jury instructions, sentencing issues. An appeal is not a new trial. Yeah, I run into this all the time. Many lay people think that, if you get convicted, just appeal, as if the appeal is a second bite at the apple, a full-blown trial. You get to do it all over again. That's not what an appeal is. It's very much not that. When you're actually on trial, you're legally presumed innocent. Every inference is in your favor until a jury finds you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. But the moment they do, which is the only reason you'd be on appeal, you're legally presumed to be guilty. You're legally presumed that the truth is as the jury verdict reflects. Every inference is against you now. My buddy Steve Gosney has done a study on this down in appellate cases. He was an appellate lawyer in Florida for many years. Fewer than 1%, about 0.6% of appeals result in meaningful relief. And by that, I just mean, you're not declared innocent, maybe a reduction in sentence. Sometimes, very rare cases, they reverse your conviction, but you don't get set free. You just go back for another trial. And most of these things he cites, procedural mistakes, evidentiary rulings, for all practical purposes, those are not appealable. First of all, they have to be objected to in order to preserve them for appeal, with rare exception on constitutional level errors, for example. They have to be objected to. Were they objected to? I mean, there were things I saw reported from journalists about this case that were certainly objectionable. I mean, I might have objected. But the reporters don't tell us that there were objections. So if they were not objected to, they were not preserved for appeal. And even if they were preserved, for most of these issues like evidentiary rulings, the appellate courts give almost complete deference to the trial court judge. Even if the appellate court would have made a different decision on that evidence, that doesn't result in a reversal. They say, listen, I would have made a different call, but we have trial judges for a reason. I'm an appellate judge. I'm not a trial judge. The trial judge got to see the witnesses, got to see the actual evidence. They made the call. We're going to defer to them. We're not going to reverse on that just because I would have made a different decision. There has to be an abuse of discretion, which means, in essence, the judge would have had to have been insane to make that call. And that almost never happens. Almost never happens. And on the issue of appeals, as again, my buddy Bill Shipley, Shipwreck Crew notes, 99% of those appeals run into harmless error analysis. That's another issue. A lot of things, there's a lot of errors that can occur in a trial, but they would not have changed anything if they hadn't been made. It would have been the same verdict. So an error not only has to occur, has to be recognized, has to be preserved, has to be appealed, but it also has to make a difference. The verdict would have been different but for the error. And almost all errors are not. They're called harmless error. If the error is harmless, there's no reason to reverse anything. The outcome would have been the same regardless. A defendant, Bill writes, is not guaranteed an error-free trial, only a fair trial. That Karmelo Anthony stabbed the victim was never disputed. The jury heard and considered the legal defense as self-defense. I can't see a reversible error. Outside of, he says here, a Batson challenge to the dismissal of the black prospective jurors. But the prosecutors would have been required by case law to give the judge non-racial justifications for why they struck those jurors. I presume they did because the judge allowed it. And this is going to bring us to the The Robert Barnes thing. I don't know if I'm ready for that quite yet. Let me see. No, okay. It's here, but I'm going to come to it a bit later. The whole issue with the black jurors, that Robert Barnes is, I don't know what the deal is with Robert these days, but he's really misleading the public in his take on this whole black jury issue. Let me see. Let me catch up on Super Chats and Rumble Rants. Another new member. Welcome to the family, my friend. I really appreciate that. Angel, $10, says, if Jacob Blake Sr. can scream, the only good C is a dead C. Is that cracker? Is C the cracker word? The only good cracker is a dead cracker? Is that what he was shouting? Chud can say whatever he wants, in my opinion. Also, the Anthony family is still getting money on Give, Send, Go. J6, $5, says, these are the same people threatening to riot over Trump's welfare cuts. We should just put all the welfare money at the top of a hill. Just run up and get it. May West, $2. Putin kills YouTube people every day. You all don't care. Well, YouTube, what is, I don't know what YT means. You all don't care. Okay. You should start a YouTube channel and talk about it. Phil, $5. Lawyers sometimes make something from nothing, as in the Alec Baldwin manslaughter trial in New Mexico. Yeah, right. They did make something from nothing. By the way, those were very smart lawyers. I thought what they were doing was, well, listen, they're defense lawyers, and I give defense lawyers a lot of grace. Defense lawyers should get away with everything they can get away with. The burden's on the state to prove the client guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. I place the blame for that miscarriage of justice in the Alec Baldwin dismissal with prejudice for the manslaughter of what was her name? Helena Hutchins? Was that it? Where he pointed the gun at a woman and shot her dead on a movie set. I put the blame on the judge. The objections those defense counsel were raising were not material. It was not evidence that the prosecution had an obligation to provide to the defense. It wasn't material. It wasn't relevant to any of the legal arguments in the criminal charge or the defense. But they were very aggressive and they were very sharp, and they convinced the judge and saved Alec Baldwin's bacon and earned every penny of whatever he was paying them. Liberty in Trust, $5. It's good to be back. Question, why didn't he take the guilty plea to get something of a reduced sentence? Was it his pride or ego? Well, why would he have gotten a reduced sentence for taking the guilty plea? I guess you could negotiate it as a plea deal. Normally you would plead to a lower charge than what you're charged with, but I guess you can just plead guilty to the charge, but ask for fewer years. But who says that was offered? The defense doesn't get to take a plea. They can only take a plea that's offered to them by the state. And on these facts, why would the state offer a plea? They have a solid lock on murder. Hexen, 9866, $5, says, I grew up in East LA and made a lot of bad choices and mistakes as a juvenile, but I don't remember murder ever being one of them. Yeah, same here, brother. I was a teenage boy hanging out in New York City. Did a bunch of crazy stuff. I never shoved a knife into anybody's chest. Jimmy from Philly, $2. Do you think that he'll join the bow tie mob? I think he's going to be wearing a schoolgirl outfit, is what I think is going to happen. That's what I think is going to happen. More Rumble Rants. King of Biltong, $5, says, Branky, you need to make Neurodivergent One your Rumble channel moderator. He mods for Viva and a lot of the other big things. Well, how do I reach out to him? Did you email me, King of Biltong? Just give him my email. I don't know how to reach out to people on Rumble. But if you recommend him and he moderates for Viva, I'd love to have him. I could use all the help I can get, as you can tell by my production values. Jonah Finn, $3. Thank you, my friend. Wait a minute. Oh, this is the first one here. $5. When my 63-year-old aunt was stabbed to death 49 times over by delusional coworker of her boyfriend, the Texas death penalty was applied. Her public defender lawyers did a better job fighting for her than Kilmelo's did. Her lawyers got 25 to life at age 64, totally forgot her name or she existed after her conviction until 11 years later she committed self-ending by ODing on stolen drugs in the infirmary. Yeah. I get it. All right, next set here. This. I mentioned earlier that a lot of times in interaction with certain black people, not all, they essentially bait confrontations. And if you take the bait, they kill you. This is very recently, this is 2 days ago in New York City. Look at this. It's unbelievable. Yesterday in New York City, Jonathan Pettigrew, 41, asks a teen on an MTA bus to lower his phone volume, and the teen killed him. He's dead. Rafael Manguel notes, I've lost count of how many times I've made this point, but please take this as a warning and not merely an observation. Antisocial behavior, like a loud Bluetooth speaker in a public setting. Think about the guy blasting music from a speaker, talking loudly on a speakerphone, smoking inside the subway car. In public spaces is often engaged in as a dare, as bait. The whole point is to provoke anger and annoyance in those around him, which serves two purposes, depending on the response he's hoping for. If everyone bites their tongue, the antisocial asshole gets to tell himself he's such a badass that no one would dare speak up. And if someone confronts him, he finds an excuse to scratch a violent itch. Understand that saying something to these people will often come with a real risk of violent confrontation. Yeah. I remember one time the girl I was dating in college, a white girl, went to stand online at the college building for some reason. Some kind of tickets were being given away, whatever. So people are starting to line up. And this big black girl just cuts in line in front of everybody. And my girlfriend says something. And the black girl tries to beat her up right there. And her dad, my girlfriend's dad, was a New York City police officer. And she told his story to him. And he told her, what are you, fucking crazy? Of course that's what happens. That's why you don't do that. Because that's the response. You'll, not always, not all. That's the response you'll too often get. And if you get that response, you die. You die. Peyton Alexander responds to Raphael's post by saying, this is what Karmelo Anthony was doing. Baiting. This is what playing music on the subway without headphones means. This is what getting in someone's way on the escalator or elevator means. It's always a dare. It's a challenge. It's getting in someone's face and hoping they brush up against you enough to swing. Take your swing. It's a deliberate provocation, and the pattern appears over and over again. Another observation, one I've made before myself, the most valuable real estate in America is the sweet spot, where you can live far enough away, he writes, from black people to avoid the violence, yet close enough to work for the commute not to be too long. This is not some random thought. It's a factual data point and should be the number one consideration if you are investing in real estate. I mean, I've heard it said that the entire real estate market, both residential and commercial, can be explained by people attempting to distance themselves from black violence. And most violence in America comes from the black community. This woman shares an interesting anecdote. And I wonder how many of you have had a similar experience. You know what? I'm going to do a poll. Have you had a personal experience in being subject to black violence for no a parent for no reason. I only have so many words. How many choices should I have? More than once? And remember, you have to type a number into the chat to respond. More than once is 1 in the chat. Once is, don't type yet, 2 in the chat. I have to put the poll up. And never. Have you had a personal experience of being subject to black violence for no reason? Create that, start, and show it. Okay, that's the poll right there. I have. I'll share mine with you after I read a couple of these. Anna D. West writes, true story, I almost died my first day of school after a move in middle school. Why? Forced busing to my suburban South Florida school. So that would, of course, be busing black students into an otherwise white school. What did I do? I talked back to a gigantic black dude who walked into me in the hallway. It took 3 armed school cops to keep him from killing me. I weighed all of 80 pounds. Later that year, my math teacher was stabbed in the parking lot. We lived near one of the Bush kids. Didn't matter. They bussed in kids who hated us and threw food in gigantic food fights once a week minimum. We had to bring extra clothes because we had taxpayer-funded milkshakes thrown at us during lunch. I'm not making this up. I really wish I was. I'm also not saying this experience didn't make me racist. It didn't. There were also some normal black kids around and even more at the private school I refugeed to before we moved back to civilization. The normal black kids studied, loudly denounced. The normal black kids studied. The normal black kids. They loudly denounced the bad behavior. They got called Oreos, and they got hit with milkshakes too. They were treated as race traitors. Those good kids also didn't balance out or negate the brutal, violent brunt of the worst elements from the worst hoods in Miami. Neighborhoods that had literally nothing to do with us. This wasn't a bad neighborhood she lived in. It was right down the street from Marco Rubio's school, which probably also had mandatory race-based busing. So yeah, hard agree. If your kids are hood socialized and incapable of acting normal, don't send them to anyone's school, anyone's. No one needs that ratchet crap when they're trying to learn, no matter what race they are. So I've had similar experiences in my life. The first time I lived as a kid for a couple of years in Belgium. My dad was in the service, and we came back to the U.S. And of course, in Belgium, it was there were no black people in Belgium when I lived there. And so I went to school. It was all white Belgian kids. I was the one American kid, and came back to the U.S. Went into a suburban New York City, a nice suburban school, and elementary school. And we have recess or whatever. We go into they put us in the gym. You know what those middle school gyms are? They have basketball hoops everywhere, right? That can be raised and lowered. So they were all lowered. There were, 8 or 9 backboards set up and a whole bunch of basketballs. And we just grab a basketball and we shoot at whatever backstop we want. And I'm looking around for a backstop that's not too crowded. And there was one that had a black kid my age shooting hoops at the basket. So I walked up, I started shooting hoops too. And he told me to go away. Get out of here. And like an idiot, not conditioned to living around black people, I said, what do you mean? You don't own this backboard. I can play here too. And you know what he did? He hurled his basketball directly into my face as hard as he could. And he hit my face. I wasn't ready to defend myself. It never would have occurred to me that would be the response I would get from this black kid. And I've had experiences like that. I mean, you learn, right? You learn from the experience how to conduct yourselves around people who just might be feral and violent in their response. Got a few more of these. People responding to this. Terry, in the 1970s, I was bused to a black school. It sucked. They came preloaded with hate for white people. This should never have happened. Fan base. As kids, we were given no choice. Some white kids I knew from kindergarten didn't make it to the 9th grade. Due to the stupid people, they decided to send shy white kids all the way across town into a violent black ghetto. They called this suicidal sacrifice ethnic integration. Hoosiertarian. I spent a year at a black school in the 90s, and the level of racist hate was incredible. Red Dar, second grade busing incident. The grade level teaching was abysmal. I learned nothing new. Oh, second grade busing recipient. Busing, right? They were teaching at kindergarten and first grade level. Alzenberg, me too. I ended up being the poster child for white flight. I lived in a 95% white county, never going back. Oh, he lives there now. Martha, I didn't share this tab. Martha Leatherman, MD, my brother went to the same school I did. The only difference was when he went, they bussed in kids from other neighborhoods. He got an awful education and was in danger all the time. 1970s Houston. You could do millions of these. Millions of these. And what's the poll telling us? Have you had a personal experience of being subject to black violence for no reason? More than once, 80%. Oh, no, 80 people, 67%. Once, 17%. So collectively, that adds up, yes, for 85% of the respondents. Never, 16%. And I bet if I did another poll for the never people, should I do it? Should I do it? Another poll just for the never people who are still here? All right, I'll do another one. Let me take that one down. New poll. For the people who responded never to casual black violence. Many black people? Let's see. I got to save some letters here. For those who responded never to casual black violence around many black people. Yes, many. One in chat. Some. Two in chat. Very few. Three in chat. It was only 19 of you, but I'm just curious what you have to say about that. I'm not going to say that early response is surprising to me. I'm not going to say it's surprising to me. Meanwhile, I'm going to continue as that poll is running. So, Breitbart News, Dallas attorney Thelma Anderson reacts to the Karmelo Anthony verdict. All right. And this is a black woman who's an attorney. So, black people who achieve the status have the purported intellect and reasoning capability to be attorneys. This is her response to the Karmelo Anthony. I'm not going to read the post. We'll just watch her speak to it from her car.
First and foremost, the one thing that I would ask for people to do at this moment is pray for the Anthony.
I'm sorry. I'll rewind it because I interrupted so quickly, but I couldn't help myself. Can you become an attorney and learn how to pronounce the word ask? It's not actually an implement for cutting down trees. Okay, it's rather jarring.
First and foremost, the one thing that I would ask for people to do at this moment is pray for the Anthony family, because they have been legally lynched for the last year.
They've been legally lynched for the last year. That was the family who wouldn't testify for their son. They've been legally lynched.
And more so by this slaughterhouse of a courthouse as well as the family of the Metcalfs. So the energy right now is very white supremacy. They have shown up to be the pigs that they display with hate. They are celebrating
Remember the fat ladies, the black ladies under the tent throwing the water bottles at Elijah Schaffer? Who was expressing hate? I'm not going to play her whole thing. That's I just wanted to give you a taste of it. Here's another black attorney supposed to have powers of reason and logic. And look how she frames this. This is really astonishing to me. Nay, let me open it up so we can see her bio. School of Law, Juris Doctor candidate. Oh, so she's still in law school. She's not an attorney. Pronouns in bio. Pronouns in bio. This is her legally sophisticated take. Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman was acquitted. Tamir Rice, no indictment. Tamir Rice was a 13-year-old who pulled an apparent gun on police officers and got shot dead. Michael Brown, that's the hands up, don't shoot, fought a police officer for his gun, got shot down. No indictment. Philando Castile, officer acquitted. This was a traffic stop where Philando Castile kept reaching into a compartment after he told the officer he had a gun, kept reaching into a compartment while the officer was screaming at him not to do that. Got shot dead. Officer was acquitted. Freddie Gray. Freddie Gray was a street corner drug dealer who got swept up in a drug sweep, asked for by the husband of the local prosecutor, a black couple. And he was handcuffed. He was put in the back of a police van. And when they opened up the van at their destination, he had a broken neck. And what the medical examiner postulated was he was handcuffed in the van, sitting on the bench, and he stood up. And then when he stood up, the van braked for a stop sign or a red light or something, and his momentum carried him forward. He hit his head on the bulkhead, the front bulkhead, and it broke his neck. She characterized the broken neck as a shallow diving type of injury. There was zero evidence that any police officer had harmed him in any way, had touched his neck in any way. And the prosecutor in that case, what the heck was her name? I'm blanking on her name. The state prosecutor whose husband requested the drug sweep. She prosecuted half a dozen of those cops, half of whom were black, for murder and other very serious crimes. And they all got acquitted. That was the Freddie Gray case. Terrence Crutcher and Savell Smith, I don't remember what those are about. But she's saying, look, all these black people died, and they were either the people who killed them were acquitted, or there were no indictments. Rick Chow, that's the convenience store, the Asian convenience store owner who was just acquitted, was found not guilty after the shooting death of 14-year-old Cyrus Carmack Belton in South Carolina. So these are all cases where she thinks black people were wronged, and the person who wronged them was not held accountable. The returning wallet case could not be verified. Okay, I don't want to get to that. Do you see the pattern, she says? So this is about as idiotic a take as you can imagine. It's almost like she wants this to be a game of even Steven. Like, hey, this was our turn for our black boy to be acquitted. All these other people were acquitted or not indicted. And she's looking at this as if, well, you got a bunch of wins. We deserve a win. We deserve a win. Not a word about the facts, not a word about the evidence, not a word about the law. All of these cases that I'm familiar with, all of them, including Tamir Rice, Michael Brown, including Philando Castile, these were all the just and legally correct outcomes based on the actual facts and law of those cases. These two I just don't know. I don't remember them. But all of these were the result of legal analysis and argument, as was the Rick Chow acquittal. That 14-year-old boy was pointing a 9mm pistol at Chow's son when Chow shot him. 14-year-old with a gun. And we're supposed to pretend that these were just arbitrary conclusions, and now it's our turn. Now it's our turn. Because it's a black boy? Finally, it should be our turn to get a win? Memetic Sisyphus writes, there's this weird ghetto honor system where they actually believe this is a case, Karmelo Anthony, is a case of self-defense. That's why he has supporters. That's why people donated so much money to him. They really believe he was justified in stabbing Austin Metcalf for putting his hands on me. None of this testimony at the trial will convince his supporters because they already knew all this. They think it's fine to stab someone for touching you on the shoulder. They honestly feel this way. Let's hear this woman. Whoops.
Black people. Anytime a white man or a white child can go and put their hands aggressively on anybody and something like this occur, it's self-defense.
Anytime a white person puts a hand on a black person aggressively and they stab him in the heart in response, it's self-defense. That's what they think. That's what they think. We talked about the baiting behavior before. This is just another example. So this is a video of two cops dealing with a black dude. Dealing with this black dude. And what did he do? He parked in a handicap spot without a handicap placard. And they went up to talk to him. Said, "Hey, do you have a placard? Did you just not hang it up on the window?" And he immediately, this black guy immediately goes insanely on the offensive. Watch this.
Don't come in there talk to me like that. Get your fucking hand on my phone and talk to me like a child, man. I'm not playing with you. I'm a grown man. Man, you back the fuck up. Don't step up on me, bro. Don't step up on me. Don't put your hands on me again. I'm gonna get in my shit. I'm gonna go. No, you don't. You're wrong, right? I came in there trying to ask you a question. No, you didn't. You come in there talking to me like a child, bro. I think that was your fault. You come in there talking to me.
He thinks apparently you can get out of having to show your license and registration if you're just mean. Mean. All right, let's get to the poll here. If you're just angry with the cops, then they'll give up asking you for your license and registration. So I had asked for those. There was like 19 people. And many more of you now responded than the 19. I said to the people who responded never in the previous poll, there were only 19 of you, never to experiencing casual black violence. Were you around many black people? Many, 12, some 10, very few, 3. So 40, 60, 70% was either only some or very few. Interesting. Interesting to my eye. And it's notable that this black dude in the handicap spot, someone says, just look at how this guy reacts to being told by police that he can't park in a handicap spot without a placard. That's how he interacts with police. Imagine if you were just walking by and you said something like this. How would he react to you? More forcefully or less forcefully? Insanely than he reacts to the police. It's absolutely nuts. Oh my gosh, we got a bunch of super chats here. All right, let me pull the mugs back up. I know what's going to happen. I know we're going to be like 3 days before Father's Day, and you're all going to say, "Oh my God, can I get the mug expedited to me?" First of all, even if that's available, that would be expensive, and I don't know that it's available. I haven't actually checked. Standard shipping for the mugs, it takes about a week to get the mug to you. A week to Father's Day is this Sunday. So it's Wednesday now. So don't wait any longer. Order your fantastic, huge, the Trump mugshot mug, the $250 note mug, or standard size mug, or whatever you like. You can scan that QR code, or the link for the mugs is pinned in the chat. And as I said, we have a bunch of other stuff too. We have travel mugs now. We have standard size mugs. We have tumblers for those of you who maybe you like the brown liquors, maybe in a perfect big cube of ice. We have koozies. We have cell phone cases, coasters, and then of course all the normal Branca stuff, mugs that were issued in prior months. But if you want it for Father's Day, you need to order it sooner rather than later. Vinny, Dog Radio, $2 says, Karmelo should have gotten corporal punishment. I think Karmelo is exactly in line with what his parents are. Dawn Marie is a new member. Thank you so much, Dawn. Welcome to the family. Smarty Pants Dumb Shit. $5 says complete and total remigration. Shout out to the Frojax brothers. Okay, I don't think I know who they are. Aaron Flemings, member for 8 months, says, I'm moving to Florida, so I'll miss a few shows while I'm driving. Your show is great. Well, thank you, man. I really appreciate that. And he gifted a membership to one of you in the YouTube chat. Very kind. Tamara Holloway $5 says, I was a bust-in Oreo that got attacked by the uncivilized black kids into nice schools in San Jose? In the 1980s, it sucked for everyone. I think it's worse. I think it's worse for the normal black kids. Because just like the normal white kids, they're just trying to get an education and enjoy school. And I think they're treated even worse by these little black terrorists than the white kids are. Phil, $5. What has The View pronounced for the Anthony verdict and sentence? What's Sonny Hostin, legal analyst, have to say about it? I don't know what to think without their rigorous legal analysis. Indeed. Troy says, do you expect a civil suit to be filed against Karmelo Anthony and or the family? Well, so yesterday I was asked this and I said no, because it didn't seem to me like the parents were angry enough. Now I've seen their victim statements and they sound angry enough now. So they'd be motivated to do it. If they were to file a civil suit for wrongful death, they would automatically win because, well, they would win against Karmelo Anthony because he's just been convicted of murder. But does Karmelo Anthony have any assets? And can you sue his parents for the wrongful death caused by their 17-year-old son who was tried as an adult? I don't know the answers to those questions. I've never been involved in a case like that. But even if you could sue the parents, do the parents have any assets, or have they spent all that money? I mean, it's been suggested, and it looks like it's correct, that the mother had a nose job since they got that money. They bought a couple Escalades. I mean, you can burn through $600,000 pretty quick if you're bad with money. And if they don't have any assets that can be seized, there's not really any point to suing them. Mike, how you doing, Mike? $5. Mike says their tribalism is ridiculous, but I'll stick with my tribe. The Andrew Branca Show family. Branca for SCOTUS. Thank you for the great show last night and today. It's always my pleasure, my friends. Wiley Schwein, $5. Just ordered 2 mugs and an iPhone case. They look awesome. Thanks, Andrew. Well, thank you, man. Every little bit helps. Squirrelfriend.com. $10. They just took down the Give, Send, Go for Karmelo Anthony. Is it because they can't collect for a convict now? I don't know that they can't collect for a convict. So I met the guy who runs it. I think his name is Jacob. I was about a year ago. I was on the Tim Pool show to talk about this case, and he was another guest on the show because he was collecting money, or he wasn't. His company, Give, Send, Go, was the collector of the money for Karmelo Anthony, and some other of his competitor companies like GoFundMe and stuff. They had been saying, we're not going to allow collections for people who've been accused of crimes. Generally, they did that to hurt George Zimmerman, hurt Kyle Rittenhouse. But Give, Send, Go's position was, listen, if it's lawful and this guy's not been convicted of anything yet, we're going to allow him to use Give, Send, Go, our company, to collect money. I don't know for a fact that you can't collect money just because you've been convicted. For example, he may want to appeal and collect money for his appeals. There are states that have laws that say you cannot benefit from your crime, but I'm not sure collecting money for an appeal I'm not sure it would be enforceable in that context. What those laws typically are meant to do is, you can't be a mass killer, kill 12 people, bury them in your basement, get caught, and then write a book about being a mass killer and burying people in your basement just to get money. I don't know, but they may have just made a corporate decision that now that he's been convicted, they're not interested in working with him anymore. Time on My Side gifted 5 memberships. Thank you so much. 5 of you in the YouTube chat just got those. Regulators, member for 2 months. Thank you, my friend. Says, I grew up in Pigtown, Baltimore, Maryland. I had several violent run-ins with black youth, always more than one at a time. It will continue until there is accountability. That's the problem with getting in a fight with teens. Is generally they'll only fight one-on-one so long as they're winning. The moment they start losing, their friends also start stomping on your head, which is obviously a problem. One iRanger, member for 9 months. Thank you very much. I backed school choice until Florida showed me the catch. You pay to live by a good school, then the system strips you. Ships in chaos, and your kid pays. Yeah, so I went to school I mentioned this yesterday. I don't like to make a big deal out of this, but my mom died when I was 13, when we were living in New York. And we had grandparents. My grandparents lived in Florida. So now my dad was a single parent with 3 little kids. I was in middle school, I guess, at the time. 2 younger sisters. So for basically one semester, 1.5 year of school, we went to Florida. And we went to school in Florida for a semester while my dad was getting our lives organized back in New York. And my grandparents looked at the public schools in Florida. This would have been like the 1970s. And they said it looks like a prison. It looked like a prison. And in fact, no white people. There were no white students. No white family would send their children into that environment, except the most desperately poor. Any white family who could afford a private Christian school send their kids to the private Christian school. So that's what they did with me. They sent me to a private Christian school for half a year down in Florida. And it was, I don't want to swear it was 100% white kids, but it was 97% white kids. I don't remember, trying to recall now, I don't remember any black kids being in the school. And that's how people respond, right? Rationally, for safety. Spud Ruckus 7297 says, I know it's racist, but we were a better society when they feared us more. Well, we're not better if we're getting stabbed in the heart. That's for sure. Kimmy Cash is a new member. Thank you so much, Kimmy. I really appreciate that. We could use all the support we can get. Knockoff Barbie. Knockoff Barbie. That's an interesting name. No avatar picture. It feels like someone named Knockoff Barbie should have a heck of an avatar picture. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And at the run, 18999, $10 says, my daughter just finished first grade in a majority minority school. Sadly, only the white, Latino, and Asian kids attend full time. Had only 8 or 9 kids in her class most of the final month. Well, I presume you're not complaining about it, right? You don't want to force people into school who don't want to be there. That's not going to tend to work well. And a Rumble rant, Jonah Finn says, I went to school with one black girl last 3 years of high school. Other 5 black kids from two other Irish families went to Catholic schools. Irish fleeing the IRA were given the homes. I'm 50 miles northwest of New York City. Okay. I'm not sure I understand exactly what you're trying to say there, but I get it, I think. All right, so I promised all right, before I get to that, I have some more crazy black people stuff. Then I'm going to get to some good black people, I promise. This account, Isaac Hayes, who's he say he is? Something called fan base. I don't know what that is. Maybe he's famous. I don't know who this is. But there's a couple of reasons I wanted to share this with you. One is it provides a perspective. Like it's like it's rationally written and reasoned. But it's completely black supremacist, anti-white racist, and unreasoned. He writes, the Karmelo Anthony verdict shows that the justice system has been reverted back to the Jim Crow South era. Is that what it is? Were you living in Jim Crow? It's no longer about evidence. It's no longer about right or wrong. Well, they don't care about the evidence. And right or wrong from their context is only whether did it help my tribe, the black community, the black guy, or did it hurt my tribe? That's all. That's how they define right and wrong. He writes, it's about keeping racial score through the prosecution and imprisonment of black people. Well, white people are prosecuted and imprisoned, just not at the same rates per capita as black people, because white people don't conduct themselves at the same per capita rate as black people. He writes, it was no surprise that an all-white jury... What he means, I don't know what he means. There were no black people on the jury. There were minorities, various ethnic groups on the jury. But he wants to say it was all white. There was no surprise that an all-white jury would find a 19-year-old kid who was bullied and harassed by 2 6'1" bullies. Literally zero evidence of any of this. Find him, Karmelo Anthony, guilty of murder while he was minding his own business. Was he minding his own business? Did they go find Karmelo Anthony when he was minding his own business? Or was he injecting himself into their space? We've seen this story before, he writes. A young black man is put on trial, and somehow the burden shifts from what happened to him to why he should not have defended himself. Defended himself against what? There was zero evidence that he was defending himself against any lethal force attack, which is what is required for him to be justified in defending himself with a knife. The facts become secondary. What facts? These bullshit facts you just made up? Those aren't facts. The optics become everything. Well, you want optics to be everything. The outcome feels predetermined long before the verdict is read. People will tell you, okay, I'm not going to read the whole thing. The one reason I wanted to read it, as I said, was this is just insanity, complete fabrication, delusion, an utterly false narrative. The other reason I wanted to share it is I don't believe he wrote this. And I'm not the only person who doesn't believe he wrote this. This account, Hans Monkey, I'm going to follow him. He's a good account. He's he notes explicitly. I could tell automatically that a human being did not write this. Hans Monkey actually makes the argument. He writes, leaving aside how dumb that tweet is and the fact that it's already been community noted as being dumb and wrong and false, it's also a perfect textbook example of how to spot AI writing. You can just spot it. It's got a certain flavor to it. Pay particular attention to the short, sharp, 3-stage sequences used to frame the narrative. For instance, 1, it's no longer about the evidence. 2, it's no longer about right or wrong. 3, it's about keeping racial score. Or another example, 1, the facts become secondary. 2, the optics become everything. 3, the outcome feels predetermined. AI loves structures like this because they are common persuasive devices. You start with a claim, you restate it in slightly stronger forms, then you make it emotional. If I want to read AI-generated commentary, I can ask AI to write it for me. I don't need some guy on Twitter acting as a middleman, acting as if he's smarter than he is. Another common AI writing technique, by the way, is, I'm sure there's a technical term for this. It's, how can the best way to describe it is an example. Like if you're talking something written about World War II, a battle in World War II, or a new fighter plane, or something that changed the game, they'll say, it was no longer about horsepower. It was no longer about rounds per minute. Now it was all about the fighting spirit. Very common. It's not this thing. It's not that thing. We're going to oppose those now with the real thing. The moment I see that in a video, I know it's complete nonsense. Look at this guy. This guy actually calls himself human AI. He writes, the moment the black jurors admitted bias, I knew Karmelo was in trouble. Why? Zachary Worrell is a lawyer. I used a tab from him earlier. Texas lawyer. Why? Why? Because you knew you needed jurors to not follow the law, to pretend they were unbiased, and then be biased in contravention of their oath as jurors? But of course, that is what they think. Down South Georgia girl says, damn, they did the whole trial and sentencing in 3 damn days. Somebody better have an appeal filed by midnight, because never have I seen no shit like this. Folks, I can tell you, most murder trials are a day, a day from jury selection to verdict. It's a one-day process, maybe 2 days. Multi-day murder trials are not common. Most murders are very simple and very straightforward and not complicated. There's not a lot of complicated evidence. It's not a ton of witnesses. This trial was not very complicated. They allocated, 2 weeks? It barely took a week? Because it was very straightforward. There's no complicated facts here. There weren't a ton of witnesses with material information to share with the jury. Whole trial sentencing in 3 damn days. Somebody better have an appeal filed by midnight, as if there's obviously appealable issues that are winnable here. That's how people think about appeals. It's like a get-out-of-jail-free card. I love this take in particular. 35 years on your first offense? That's over-sentencing. It's like your sentence has nothing to do with the criminal offense, the severity of the offense. Your sentencing should be based on how many cumulative offenses have you had. Like the first one should always be a get-out-of-jail-free card. no matter what it is. Minimal sentence or no sentence. You don't get to the serious sentences until you've done bad things 10 or 15 times. Who is this person? You can't make this shit up. They're a gangsta, I guess. You can't make it up. All right, let's see. I'm going to do the Barnes thing, and then I'll close out with I'll call them the good black people, the rational black people. This is not all black people acting crazy like this, and I want to make that clear. So Robert Barnes has been complaining about the black jurors that were dismissed, and there's really two groups of those. Three black. This is my understanding, so the specific numbers may be a little off, but my understanding is that there were three black jurors who told the court they cannot be unbiased and impartial. So they got dismissed for cause. And then there were three other black jurors who got dismissed for other reasons. And let me explain. Let me pull the mug back up while I'm talking about this. So in lawyer speak, there's a number of ways to get rid of a juror. One is what we call, well, let me take a step back. So before you go into jury selection, the judge will tell you each side gets a certain number of strikes, where you can just, without having to have the court's approval or explain yourself to the court, you can just strike a prospective juror. I don't like their attitude. I don't like their tone of voice. It doesn't have to be for a substantive reason. Unless the reason is racist. So we'll circle back to that. But you have a certain number of strikes. Now, when a lawyer strikes a prospective juror, it would be idiotic to say the lawyer's doing it for no reason. The lawyer has a very limited number of strikes. They're precious to the lawyer. He's only going to use one of those up if he thinks he has a good reason to strike that juror. Now, that's a way a lawyer can get rid of a limited number of jurors. I always say lawyers don't do jury selection. We have a modest ability to deselect jurors. And one of the key ways you deselect a juror is you exercise one of your limited number of strikes. The other way you can have a juror deselected without having to use a strike is by convincing the court that this person is not suitable to be a juror. For example, this juror told the court they cannot be unbiased and impartial. If the juror is not suited to be a juror, you don't need to use a strike to get rid of them. They can be dismissed for cause. That's something the judge does. And of course, that's limitless. We should never seat someone who's not suitable to be a juror. So because they're dismissed for cause, you don't have to use a strike. Again, that doesn't mean that if you use a strike, you're using it without a reason. You just don't have a reason that would qualify for cause, so you're compelled to use a strike to get rid of that juror. Now, one thing you're not allowed to use your strikes for is you can't strike black jurors just because they're black. You need a race-independent reason. And if one party strikes a black juror, the other party is entitled to ask for what's called a Batson hearing. A Batson hearing is where the other side goes, hey, Your Honor, we suspect a strike was used against this black prospective juror for reasons of race. And we'd like you to compel the lawyer who just exercised that strike to explain why it's not just race, to explain why they have a race-neutral reason. And if the lawyer exercising the strike cannot provide a race-neutral reason, they can't strike that juror. And unless there's cause, the juror is going on the jury. But if they can provide a race-neutral reason, well, then the strike is legitimate. And the lawyer is, the prospective juror is dismissed. So these are three different things that's happening. And what I find, I mean, Robert's he's been a lawyer for a long time. He's got a lot of legal expertise. He's a smart guy. He knows everything I just explained to you. But when he's talking about these three black jurors who were dismissed not for cause, he makes it sound like, well, if they weren't dismissed for cause, it must have been racist. And if it's racist, that's grounds for a reversal of the conviction. Just going to refill my tea. As if there's only those two buckets, right? There's only the bucket of for cause and then the bucket of racist dismissal of a black person. But those aren't the only two buckets. You can strike a black juror if you have a race-neutral reason. And he's leaving that out. And so because these last three black jurors were not stricken for cause, the first three were, but the last three weren't, he's saying, well, they were stricken without cause. I think that's very misleading. And it feels like a dishonest explanation of what happened here. You don't need to strike if you have cause. If you have cause, they said they can't be impartial. The judge just dismisses them. You don't use a strike. And you can legitimately strike a black juror without the cause if you have a race-neutral reason for doing it. There's a race-neutral reason you don't want them being a juror in your client's trial. The only time the strike is constitutionally offensive is if you can't provide a race-neutral reason, and it's just racist. So this is what Robert has to say here. The evidence was so clear of guilt, I guess, it made no sense to try to rig it. He's saying they rigged it. They did something, the state did something dishonest by excluding all black jurors and asking, well, that's a separate issue. This is what win at all cost prosecutors create, public controversy and appellate risk that needn't exist. Well, I think it's Robert creating the public controversy, and I don't think there is any appellate risk for the dismissal of these 6 black people. 3 were dismissed for cause by the judge. That's because they said they can't be impartial. So forget them. That's obviously completely legitimate. The other 3 were dismissed with strikes, which is only a problem constitutionally, an appellate risk, as Robert says, if there was no race-neutral reason. But that's not what happened here. This person responds to Robert, isn't it possible that the black jurors were dismissed because they couldn't find a non-prejudicial black juror? And Robert says, nope, the prosecution struck 3 black jurors for no cause at all. They used their peremptory strikes because they had no cause to strike them. I mean, that doesn't even make sense. That sentence doesn't make sense. They used their strikes because they had no cause to strike them. Robert, that's not legally coherent. If you have cause, the judge dismisses them. Strikes don't enter the picture. The only time you would use a pressure strike is if you can't meet the cause threshold. Strikes exist because you're allowed to get rid of jurors without cause. You're allowed to get rid of jurors if you have a constitutionally legitimate reason, a rational reason that's not unconstitutional. So those last 3 black jurors did. The question is, not did they have cause. If they had cause, you wouldn't strike them. You would have the judge dismiss them. The actual legal question is, we're striking them. Did they have a race-neutral reason to strike those last 3 black jurors? Joey Jojo Poker, I don't know who this is, but they went to the trouble of asking Grok about this. And Grok has a pretty good response. Grok, did the prosecution give cause for striking the potential black jurors? And it's like, that phrasing is legally incoherent. Grok responds, no, the prosecution used peremptory strikes, which require no cause, on 3 black prospective jurors. When the defense raised a Batson challenge, again, that's when the defense says, Your Honor, you got to ask the state to provide a race-neutral reason for this. Prosecutors gave race-neutral reasons. The jurors were educators whose occupations connected to case circumstances. They were high school teachers. The judge accepted this and denied the objection. Another 3 black prospective jurors also voiced potential bias during voir dire. they can be dismissed for cause because they're biased. They're saying they're biased. You don't need to use strikes for them. They had difficulty putting a brother in jail. Is this standard practice in a jury trial? What happened to the rest of that? Grok is asked. And Grok says, yes, peremptory challenges are standard in U.S. jury trials. Both sets get a limited number of strikes to dismiss potential jurors without stating a reason at the time. Unless you're dismissing a black person, and then you have the Batson challenge, and then you have to give a race-neutral reason. Joey Jojo Poker, does Barnes know this is the standard? Or is he just peacocking here? And Grok says, well, I don't know. Oh, I guess he knows Barnes. Barnes knows it's standard. As an experienced trial lawyer, he understands this process. His remarks appear to spotlight their specific use here for emphasis. I don't know why he's doing it, but Robert, it feels like this is intended to deceive. This sentence, the prosecution used their peremptory strikes because they had no cause to strike those last three black jurors. A lay person is going to read that as meaning they had no reason. It was just racism. And I don't think that's an honest representation of what happened here. I just don't. All right. The reasonable black people commenting on all of this. This woman, black woman, let's hear what she has to say about this. Because I feel obliged to emphasize, it's not all. It's not all. There are perfectly reasonable black people out there, lots of them, millions of them. Let's hear what she has to say.
So here we are. The defense has rested its case. They really didn't have a case. What I think happened was that some people went to Karmelo Anthony's parents and probably told them that he would get off if he went to trial, that they could convince the jurors of his innocence. But the bottom line is this: he was not innocent. He is not innocent, and he is going to have to pay for this crime. They were trying to possibly get him off because they were probably thinking, like O.J. Simpson, that he would somehow get off. After he took this boy's life, he threw the knife and he took off running. One of the school resource officers caught up with him. He said that he did it. He said he did it. There were eyewitnesses there. Here is what people don't understand. I continue to see this in my comments, that he needs to keep his hands to himself. Well, black folks, you can't have rules for me and not for thee. Because if your child touched someone or pushed them, shoved them, punched them, whatever, and they stabbed them in the chest and they lost their life, you would not think that this was fair. But you think it's fair regarding Austin because he's white. Do you know why you think that? It's because you are jealous of white people. You have been told since you were children that they had advantage over you. So you have watched a lot of white people live a good life, and you think that it is time for them to suffer because of your suffering. But what you don't understand is that your suffering is because of you. If you renew your own mind, and if you got in your head that if God is for you, that no man can stand against you, you could have the same thing that you believe that white people have that you don't have. Do you not understand that there are also white folks that can't find jobs, that there are white people that are on food stamps and everything else? Most of the white people that I talk to don't even know about this imaginary race war or this hatred that they have towards us. You've been told that. So now anytime a case comes up where it's a black person that has done wrong to someone white, you guys do a knee jerk and you side with the black person because you think that finally they are getting their payback. You need to fix your heart. Is something wrong with you? His parents had no wisdom. This is why they blew all the money that was raised in that GoFundMe. If they had any wisdom, as soon as the school called and told them what happened, they would tell him, you need to plead guilty. Don't even take this to trial. Don't put the Metcalfs through any more pain because their son was taken. Where is the compassion for the Metcalf family? There has been none. It's almost like they are being assaulted every single day because of a tragedy that happened.
Anybody have a problem with living next to this woman as a neighbor? I wouldn't.
To their son. The parents, instead of exercising wisdom and saying, hey, plead to manslaughter because you did it. But instead, you want to take it to trial because you thought that he would be able to get off. There is no way he's going to get off. If he did, it would be a travesty, a complete travesty and miscarriage of justice, considering that people have seen what happened. He said he did it. This is no argument. The argument comes because you have a lot of people that deal in their feelings, and they think that they have a say in what happens in a court of law.
Sometimes it feels like dealing with adult-size, retarded, self-centered, hyper-violent children. This goes on for another few minutes, but we've been going a long time, so I want to move along. Zeke Arkham. Zeke is a black guy. Has his thoughts on this. I like him. I follow him on X. Always solid thinking. He writes, please stop saying you need to have empathy for Karmelo. It could have been you. He writes, and this is a black guy writing, no, it could not have been me. It could not have been my daughter. It could not have been my brothers. It could not have been my nieces or nephews. Why not? Because we're not out randomly picking fights and then stabbing dudes at track meets. Now, if they start handing out jail sentences for roasting former congresswomen, crackheads, or leftists, I'm getting consecutive life sentences. I'm also going to identify as a woman because, well, reasons. I'm not spending the rest of my life looking at a bunch of men in prison. But Karmelo and I are two different dudes. Stop trying to put his dumb shit on those of us with common sense and decency. Of course. Reverend Jordan Wells has an interesting Photoshop here. This picture on the right is Austin Metcalf if he were black, right? Made to look like Karmelo Anthony. If Austin Metcalf were black, nobody would care about any of this. If the guy on the right, Austin Metcalf, had been black, this trial would have been buried. Barely a mention. Black on black crime happens daily, and our community stays silent. The only time we rally is when we scream racism. We don't see mass outrage over teen takeovers, flash mob violence, or kids destroying cities. Time to care about all black lives, not just the ones that fit the narrative. Jason Terry, another black guy, I'm not going to be saying these N-words. He writes, y'all N-words are so effing dumb. Y'all really thought Karmelo Anthony was going to get away with stabbing that kid to death. I can tell a lot of you were raised by hoes. A strong black father tells you early that you can't get away with the same as whites do. Oh, well, he thinks whites can get away with just stabbing people in the heart. That's funny. I hadn't caught that initially. And Grandpa's free advice. Oh, this guy was funny. This guy was a pro Austin Metcalf. This black guy. Pro Austin Metcalf. Firmly convinced of the guilt of Karmelo Anthony. And he's holding a basically a convict Karmelo Anthony sign as a black man outside the courthouse. And of course, the other black people don't like this very much, but I just thought this was a funny clip.
I'm from Africa. I'm blacker than all of you.
I'm from Africa.
Yeah, from the motherland. Born in Africa. Where am I? Hold on. All right, I'm going to tell y'all something real quick. Black people are not exclusively from America. They're from all over the world. All over the world. They're from Africa, Australia, Great Britain.
We don't need to hear. How do you reason with people who babble like these people? It's crazy.
What did he say? He said, I'm going to do this to you. No, where's that mean? Huh? I'm from Africa. I'm black.
Oh, it ends. This guy who pops his head in here, he's the guy who's hopping up and down in the video I showed you earlier in the show, maniacally in the face of the white guy. All right, I think those are all the tabs I have. You know what? Let me pull up. I'm going to go through the super chats and Rumble rants. However, I'll pull the mug up. Don't forget, folks, the mug. Order it now to make sure you get it in time. You need about a week. A week before Father's Day is this Sunday. So, and remember, we have a bunch of stuff. It's not just a mug. We have travel mugs. We have tumblers. We have koozies. We have cell phone cases. All kinds of stuff. Scan that QR code. This is my favorite, though. The huge mug is my favorite. The mugshot mug for Trump's $250 bill. Scan that QR code, or the link is the pinned comment in the chat. And let me get to these. New member, welcome to the family, my friend. Glad to have you. Lawyer Friend Gal, $10 says, racially integrated prisons is cruel and unusual punishment under the 8th Amendment for white people as a small hated minority. I can see that being a very sound argument. David Eisenhower, how you doing, David? $10 says, it makes me cringe every time you bring up racial and ethnic differences. I know it's true, but the conditioning of a lifetime of being told not to look at it is real. We are, in fact, there was another tab I wanted to get to here. Oh, darn it. Oh, here it is. White people are the only ethnic group that's been completely brainwashed and conditioned to not have an in-group preference. And we see this reflected in all kinds of ways. This is the data. These studies have been done many, many times, but they ask people in a particular ethnic group how they perceive other ethnic groups, favorably or unfavorably. And so they ask whites, well, how would you rate whites or blacks or Hispanics or Asians? That's that upper left blue box there. And when you ask white people about whites and other ethnic groups, they put everybody in a very narrow silo. A very narrow silo. Oh, we're all about the same. No other ethnic group does that. None. When you ask Hispanics to rate ethnic groups, they rate Hispanics highest. That's the upper right box. And whites are lowest. That's a pretty big disparity. When you ask Asians, they do it too. They rate Asians higher. And every other ethnic group is substantially lower, white, black, and Hispanic. And then when you ask blacks, they rate blacks way higher than everybody else, and whites are the worst. Every ethnic group has in-group preference. But if you're a white person, you've been mentally conditioned to viscerally recoil at the very thought that you might say, yeah, I would rate white people higher than other groups, right? What? Then you're a white supremacist. But are the Hispanics Hispanic supremacists? Are the Asians Asian supremacists? Are the blacks black supremacists? They're allowed to have in-group preference. Only white people are not. And the conditioning is real. It's very powerful. I agree with David 100%. As a white person, you viscerally recoil. Ivernets, $5, said, excused from jury duty for cause, and your electric car won't start. What? I don't get it, man. I appreciate the contribution, though. New member, Fat Man Flying. Boy at Pogie, $5, says, is there a risk of getting a longer term if they appeal the case? Well, that's a great question. The answer is if he were to appeal and get his conviction reversed and it's remanded for a new trial, the new trial starts as if the first trial never happened. The sentence goes away too. So yeah, if he's resentenced, he could get 99 years. He could get the max. That's a risk you take. And I've seen that happen, by the way. There was the remember the taser lady, the female cop? Thought she was going to taser the young black man who was racing away from the police stop in his car. And she pulls out her weapon, shouts, taser, taser, taser. But it's not a taser. It's her 9mm pistol. And she shoots and kills the teen driver racing away from the police stop. And she's tried for manslaughter. And she got convicted. And then the judge gave her a very low sentence. And her conviction was wrongful. It just was not manslaughter. But on the legal merits, it wasn't manslaughter. It was another one of these racially energized cases because she was a white woman, and of course the teen driver was a young black man. But she got convicted because of this racial hysteria we have in the country. And people said, well, she should appeal her conviction. And I think she had good cause to appeal her conviction. But the judge gave her a very limited sentence. It was like 18 months. And if I were her lawyer, and of course I talked about this at the time we were streaming the case. If I were her lawyer, I'd probably advise her to do the 18 months because she could come back for trial. And I think she was looking at murder. But even if she just got manslaughter again, she might get a different sentencing judge. and end up with a lot more, end up with 10 years instead of 18 months. Why take that risk? She already lost her career as a cop. She just was staying home now. Just do the 18 months and then you're free and clear. And that's ultimately what she did. A Gunface, $5. Thank you. As I said the other day, Barnes was off the rails with Viva Sunday, telling straight up BS about the case. I didn't watch it. Viva had me on, and I talked about Barnes a little bit, and Viva asked me about it. I responded to some particular points that Barnes had made from my own perspective. But listen, everyone can go watch Barnes' content and make your own assessments. Mind Chaos Brew, $5 says, amen, very reasonable sentencing and correct verdict. Well, I don't think the sentencing was reasonable. It should have been a lot more, in my view. The verdict was certainly correct. The family never got the money. It's being refunded to the donors. Is that true? How did they buy the Escalades and stuff? Is the money still in the account? I should try to call that guy and ask him. Maybe I'll have him on the show. I did meet him on Tim Pool. I've got a picture with him. I wonder, I'm sure I took a picture with him when I was on Tim Pool. Let me see if I can find it real quick. It was just about a year ago. So let me go back. Let's see. March, got to get to like April 2025. I was also Angry Cop was also on the show. Oh, you know what? I think I did not take a picture with him. No. I found it. I found Angry Cop though. I can do him. Let's see. He's a police officer and YouTuber. Very funny guy. Very, very funny guy. I had a lot of fun with him on the show. This is him. And that's the Tim Pool studio in the background. But I guess I didn't take a picture with the Give Send Go guy. Maybe I'll reach out to him and see if we can do his show. That might be interesting. He was a very nice guy, by the way, the Give Send Go guy. Very, very, very religious, very reasoned. The Nick J4, $2. She had a wonderful speech. Thanks for the analysis. You're very welcome. And Time on My Side, gifted 5 memberships. That's very generous of you. And we have Gito463, another $10. Whoops. I meant to hit the cash button there. Jasmine White Boys Crockett tried to imply that a 300-pound white guy was on top of Anthony and pummeling him, even with all the facts in the open now. Poor Jasmine. I wonder what she's going to do with herself now that she's no longer a congresswoman. Jonathan says, I lived in a very white, racismless village in the 80s. Yeah, I mean, where I went to high school, my class was about 150. We had about 450 kids in the high school. And I don't remember more than a couple of them being black. Very few blacks, very few ethnics at all. There were a few Asians, there were a few Indian kids. And the rest of us were just white Long Island kids. All right, everybody. I think that's what I have for all of you today. Another 2.5-hour show. No wonder I couldn't do a members only show today. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for your ongoing support. I will plan to be back again at 10 a.m. my time, noon Eastern time, tomorrow for another open access show. Until then, I remain Attorney Andrew Branca for The Branca Show. Stay safe.